Welcome everyone to the Social Care Council Lunchtime Seminar. Today we are delighted to host the Department of Health as they share the latest in their reflection series, Social Work and Family Support. I'm delighted to welcome Peter May, Permanent Secretary, and Aine Morrison, Chief Social Worker, who will be addressing you later on in the seminar. We have a range of speakers today who will explain this new reflections document, setting the context and theory, and how the document can support your practice. So just before I ask Helen to start, I'm just going to do a few housekeeping bits of business. So can everybody ensure that you are on mute? And we have a really packed agenda, a great range of speakers today, but it means that we might not have time for questions. But please, if you have any comments or questions that you want to make or pose, put them into the chat and we'll make sure that the speakers see those and respond to you. And also, just to make you aware, we do record our lunchtime seminar. So this lunchtime seminar is being recorded and the link will be shared in the coming weeks. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Helen to kick us off in relation to the seminar. Helen, over to you.
Thanks, Patricia. Sorry, I'm just trying to screen share here. Bear with me. Thank you, Patricia. I'm Helen Dunn. I was the professional advisor at the Department of Health when we commenced this work on the Reflections Family Support. Although I've retired since then, I'm going to complete the work with an advisory group from across the statutory and voluntary sector, some of whom you will hear from today. And I would like to thank everyone who contributed for all the work on this. Also, my thanks to Connor Diver, who was the design and printing on this document. This is number 7 in the series of good practice discussion papers developed by the Office of Social Services at the Department of Health, themed around social work and social care practice in Northern Ireland. Others in the series you will know include anti-poverty strategy, homelessness, co-production, community development, mental health and adult services. One of the biggest challenges in this edition was to try to make the Reflections Family Support readable, helpful, succinct, but with sufficient detail to whet your appetite about this hugely important area of work. There was so much more we could have included, and we genuinely hope you will continue to expand your knowledge and skills in this area. This is especially important in the current context when families face so many challenges. And can I also say that we're all acutely aware of the very real pressures faced by staff and organisations engaged in this work, given the funding pressures across all of the sectors. Hard copies of the document will be available from the department, as well as an online version with links to projects and other information we think you will find really helpful. I want to quickly just run through the agenda for today. After myself then, we're going to hear from Mandi MacDonald from Queen's University on the theoretical perspectives, from Peter May from the department, who's the permanent secretary there. Dr. Ulla Lernahan from the SPPG will tell us about family support in the statutory sector, and Melanie Stone will cover parents' perspectives, and Claire Humphrey will explain about family support and early help, and we'll have some closing remarks then from Aine Morrison. One of the most important elements for all of us was what parents told us worked for them. And at the end of Una's presentation, we will hear directly from a parent on video. And I am indebted to Michaela Lewis, who is part of the Together as One group in the Western Trust, for sharing her story, which was filmed on our behalf by Roger Gowdy at Children in Northern Ireland. Unfortunately, Mark Bailey, who is the policy officer at the Department of Health, was unable to join us today. So on his behalf, I'm going to share some slides on his presentation on family policy. I should also say that when we were working on this document together, we did consult with a group of senior practitioners and newly qualified social workers about what they felt would be helpful for them, and we've tried to address those issues within the document itself. So the Families Matter strategy, you'll be aware, was launched by the Department of Health in 2009 and brought about several significant changes for families across all levels of need in Northern Ireland. These changes include the development of key services such as the Family Support Hubs, the Family Support Online Database, the Child Contact Centres and Parentline NI. We also had the Early Intervention Transformation Programme and the Reaching Out Supporting Families Programme, among other initiatives which have continued to build the bank of support services available to families. We have also developed our learning about what works, and as part of the work to develop this strategy, we find that there is a consensus around 6 key underpinning principles for effective family support, which include doing it early, doing it well, doing what works, doing it with families, not to them, doing it together, and helping families to do it for themselves. The Children and Young People Strategic Partnership has been an important part of all of this as well and has been running for 12 years. It brings together a range of cross-sectoral agencies that aim to improve the lives of children and young people across Northern Ireland and works at many levels, including at a very local level, as you will know. It is accepted that we cannot separate the needs of children from those of families, and we need to effectively support them to properly support each other. Strategies to tackle issues such as poverty, domestic violence, and sexual abuse, early learning and childcare are developed across departments and sectors, committing everyone who can improve outcomes for families to action. It is intended that work to develop a cross-departmental family and parenting support strategy will resume next year, which will provide further opportunities to change and improve the way that we support families and help to deliver our vision of confident, competent, positive parenting, resilient, stable and strong families where relationships are positive, healthy and nurturing, a society and culture which values and supports the role of parents and recognises the importance of strong families, and support that meets the needs of families experiencing particular challenges. At the moment, the ongoing independent review of children's social care services led by Professor Ray Jones is coming to an end. The review report is expected on the 21st of June. One of the questions for the review was whether we have got the balance right between supporting families and protecting children. That does not mean that we shouldn't protect children who need our protection. The question posed by the department to the review was whether we can do more by supporting families earlier and better to prevent need escalating to the point of crisis and the need for a crisis protection response. And I'm sure we all look forward to the analysis of Professor Jones on that specific point. So can I say on behalf of the group, thank you for joining us today. We hope you will find the seminar really helpful. And I'm now going to hand over to Mandi MacDonald from Queen's University. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Mandi MacDonald. I'm a senior lecturer in social work at Queen's University, and I have to say it has been a real pleasure to be part of the group that has pulled this publication together. So I'm going to just give a bit of a summary and overview of some of the ideas and principles that are foundational to the way that we think about and plan and deliver family support, and that are really foundational to the strategic context that Helen has just said. So if you just bear with me 1 second and I will share my presentation. Now, is that fine? Hopefully you can see that. I suppose when we think about family support, really what we're referring to is a very broad range of family-focused services provided by a range of different agencies at various levels, and various investment to promote the stability, well-being and positive outcomes for children and young people. So the overall aim of family support is to promote children's welfare by grounding their child rearing in a system of supportive relationships and resources and really to improve the quality of life and well-being of all their family members. So while all families rely on the support of their social networks and all families utilise various services, the sort of family support that we're talking about today pays particular attention to those families who are vulnerable or whose children are at risk of harm or at risk of poor outcomes. So every child requires the nurture and care of adults to meet their needs, and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child recognises the family as the best environment for children where possible. Article 18 of the Convention notes that parents have primary responsibility for their children's welfare, but that they must be supported and given the help that they need to raise their children. The best interest of the child must be a top priority in all decisions and actions that affect children. But to achieve a child's best interests, their views, feelings and wishes must be listened to and taken seriously. And that's reflected in Article 12 of the Convention that says that every child has the right to express their views, feelings and wishes in all matters affecting them and to have their views taken seriously and considered. So in terms of family support then, children and young people should be recognised as active members of their families and as people in their own right. So children's agency and capacity to make informed choices should be respected, albeit that within our legislation, their autonomy is somewhat constrained by age-related categories at which they can and can't make certain decisions and actions for themselves. But that said, family support services and practitioners should promote children's participation. They should seek to enable children and young people to formulate and express their views and make sure that those are respected, including their views on how their family can best be supported. Within our family support planning provision, there is a focus on early help or early intervention to support families when difficulties first emerge. So that can mean supporting children very early in their lives or supporting families very early in the life of a problem or a difficulty. And that's in order to prevent problems escalating. In line with the UNCRC emphasis on promoting the upbringing of children by their parents, a preventative approach to family support enables many families to stay together and can avoid the need for children to be placed in long-term alternative care. Although, I mean, we have noted that short-term foster residential care can sometimes be a useful form of family support in itself and can prevent longer-term family separation. So the focus on, as Helen has said, early help and early intervention, and that has implications for how families access those services and ensuring that families know how to access services at their point of need. Our family support in Northern Ireland is organised hierarchically according to the level of need of the child and their family. And this is sometimes referred to, you'll hear this referred to as the Hardaker model of need and support. So at level 1, all families engage with a range of organisations and professions to support the health and well-being of their children. So schools, doctors, dentists, libraries, sports facilities, and service provision at that level is universal and is available to all families. And most children and families will have their needs met through those universal services. At level 2, many families have additional needs and therefore may require additional services aimed at addressing specific need to address their particular vulnerabilities. Then at level 3, some children have complex needs that might be chronic and enduring, and they and their families may need targeted support to ensure that their health and development aren't compromised. And then at level 4, we have a minority of families who have particularly complex or acute needs, such that their children may be at risk of significant harm without the provision of services. And so that includes children in need of safeguarding or protection, and services to families at this level might form part of a child protection plan. So while family support is organised on that tiered model of service provision, and that those tiers roughly correspond, certainly at level 3 and level 4, roughly correspond to our child in need and child at risk of significant harm as they are reflected in our children's legislation. In reality, many families present both with high levels of need and concerns for child safety simultaneously. So in that context, even though sometimes child protection concerns may be to the fore, it's still necessary to consider how support can be provided to a family while safeguarding their children. So child protection and family support are not mutually exclusive. Family support can be protective in that children are protected best if their families have access to services that are timely and tailor-made to their needs. And similarly, safeguarding interventions can be undertaken in a way that is supportive, ensuring families encounter strengths-based partnership approach, no matter what point they come into contact with child welfare systems. And so that's what we mean when we talk about protective support and supportive protection. Family support is child-centered in that its central aim is to promote the well-being of children. However, many of our family support activities don't actually engage directly with children, but are focused more on the significant adults in their lives. Most often, it is parents who are the focus of support, and that's on the basis that good outcomes for children are promoted by resourcing their parents and or seeking to change or affect parental behaviour. So parenting support and parenting education are key components of family support and often are referred to interchangeably. Sometimes those terms are used interchangeably, parenting support and family support. Parenting support specifically refers to services that are focused on enhancing how parents approach and carry out their role of caregiving and raising their children. So their knowledge, their skills, their parenting competencies, but should also be focused on parents' own well-being and improving the emotional and social resources needed for raising children. So it's important that parents aren't viewed just as vehicles or conduits for achieving positive outcomes for children, but that parents also are people in their own right, and recognition. I mean, family support is built on recognition that children's interests are likely to be best served when we improve the well-being of their parents and their other family members as well. And on a similar vein, families operate within networks of relationships, and many people perceive support to happen naturally within these extended networks, extended families, friendship networks, and the local community. When additional needs arise, people tend to turn first to these informal networks they have, or to the universal services like doctors and teachers. But if this kind of what is referred to as bread and butter support isn't available, formal support services are more likely to be needed. So it's important that community and family networks are strengthened and resourced to meet the changing needs of families in a very flexible and responsive way. So that means that a key aim of family support is strengthening informal networks, enhancing social support networks, increasing parents' sense of confidence and their ability to engage with those networks within their own family and friendships, circles, and within their own communities. There is somewhat of a critique in the family support literature that individualized explanations for family difficulties tend to dominate policy and policy debates. And as a result of that, that intervention tends to be targeted at individual parental behaviour, rather than addressing the broader social and economic structures and inequalities that can impact on family life, and that can quite often constrain and really influence just the range of opportunities or abilities that any parent would have. A focus on family resilience, and particularly an ecological model of resilience, can help bring a more holistic understanding of a family's needs and experiences in the context of their whole broader social environment. So an ecological approach sees resilience as an interaction between the individual's characteristics and capacities, the conditions and resources that they have in their community, and then their ability to actually access those resources that might be available. So taking an ecological approach to family support means that our family support activity needs to be directed towards the family or the individual family member and their individual capacities. But it also needs to be directed towards their community and wider social networks. And it also needs to pay attention to how people are able to interact with or access the resources that are in the social context that they live in. So our family support services aim to strengthen extended family and friendship networks and surrounding communities, as well as to strengthen the family's own capacities. That ecological approach to family support then seeks to address three areas: the family, the service provision, and the wider community. So at the family level, improving the situation at home for individuals and strengthening relationships between family members is key. So, for example, helping parents develop coping strategies, helping parents acquire parenting skills, some intervention to improve family relationships. At the level of service provision then, the focus is on ensuring availability of the right services at the right time, but also strengthening the family's ability to engage with that service system. So that might look like, for example, ensuring that families have information about their rights, know what services are available to them, know how to access those services, but also that they have the confidence and the skills to collaborate with professionals and to actually participate in decision making. At the community level, the focus then is on strengthening parents' ability to advocate for improved services, as well as ourselves seeking improvement in services. So that might, for example, look like creating participation platforms, involving local stakeholders, and then also strengthening and coordinating the networks of local resources. So, for example, you'll be familiar with the work of the family support hubs around coordinating and mobilising the range of supports that are available within the community. So that's our sort of ecological approach to family support. What any type of support, what family support actually looks like, can fall into sort of four categories. So there's concrete support, which is actual practical help, transport, childminding, actually helping people within their home to kind of develop the skills and resources that they need to just practically carry out family life. But then there's advice or information support, so guidance with undertaking important tasks, help to resolve difficulties. So that might include parent education on aspects of child rearing, assistance with finances or budgeting. But emotional support is also important, and that involves close relationships and listening to people when upset or counselling. And then esteem support is based on encouragement, helping to build the family's confidence in their own abilities and offering unconditional positive regard. So that pulls together, in a social work sense, our skills and our values and our knowledge, mobilising all three of those to offer a broad range of support to families. And just to finish up, Helen has mentioned the various principles that are in our strategic context and that are foundational to our policy. And just to go through again some of those guiding principles. Family support is strengths-based, and that means it acknowledges parents' motivation to promote the well-being of their family. It recognises and builds on their strengths, and it harnesses families' own agency for change, and that's both adults and children. So the focus is on what is actually changeable and attainable, and that's an optimistic approach because it operates from a belief that challenging situations can improve, and it instills a sense of optimism within families. Family support is a partnership approach focused on voluntary engagement, establishing shared goals, involving parents in shared decision making. And that is most often achieved through clear communication about what needs to change, while also respecting parents as experts and active participants in meeting their children's needs. And as I said before, while definitions of family support emphasize the centrality of the child and the primary aim of securing children's welfare, that is more likely to be achieved by promoting the well-being of all family members and considering the needs of the family as a whole. So it's a whole family approach aimed at improving the well-being of all family members and strengthening the relationship between adults and children within families. How the concept of family support is communicated and how services are advertised to families matters greatly. So for people to seek help outside of their natural informal networks, they need that to be normalized. They need that to be a normal part of day-to-day life and not stigmatized in any way. And support needs to be readily available and delivered in a way that makes sense and is accessible in the context of people's day-to-day lives. So that's why I've written here that a guiding principle is that services are accessible and acceptable to families. Families need to know what type of help is available, how they can avail of it, and services need to be local, unfussy, user-friendly, and helpful to people. So that's, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of some of the principles and kind of ideas that are foundational to our planning and provision of family support in Northern Ireland, and that we have sort of gathered up and sort of underpin the publication. Helen, I'm not sure if we are ready yet for our next person, because that was a little quicker than I expected it to be.
Yeah, thank you.
My apologies if I galloped through that a little bit.
That's fine. I'm not sure if Peter May has joined us just yet. Not yet. So maybe I could just say that as well as part of today, as say, we were very keen to hear the voices of families, of parents in particular. So after in his presentations, which we'll probably move to now, we'll also hear from Melanie Stone, who works for the Centre for Effective Services, of her evaluation on the 36 services that were under the Reaching Out Supporting Families programme, and about what parents told us about what worked for them then.
Peter has just joined.
Peter has just joined. So I'm just going to finish the next sentence, and then and the other thing that we're so glad about having available to us today is that Claire Humphrey from Bernardo's is with us, and she has asked a parent to just share live with us on screen. So we're hoping all that works, and we're really indebted to Rachel Kelso for agreeing to do so. So if Peter's available and he's willing to go next. Peter, can I just introduce you? I can't actually see you on my screen at the minute. So Peter's the Permanent Secretary of the Department of Health, and we're very keen and thankful, Peter, that you were able to join us today. Thank you.
Okay, Helen, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Look, thanks very much for the opportunity to join. It feels like I've just jumped into the middle of something and interrupted someone, so I'm very sorry about that. And don't worry, I don't have a presentation, although I see my name's going up on the screen. It's just a chance really for me to say how pleased I am to be part of the launch of this edition of the Reflection series. I know this is a series that OSS in the department's been running for some time. And I think this might be something like the 7th, I'm not sure, maybe I've got that wrong. The 7th edition, and it's focusing on family support, which I guess of all of the issues is one that pretty much is present in pretty much everything that social workers do in pretty much every sphere of the practice that they've got. We all know that every family faces some challenges at some stage or another, and often support's available within their immediate or extended family or their friends. But for others, accessing help through a range of available services can ensure families get the help they need before more intensive support is needed. And even where more intensive support is needed, social work will support families to navigate more serious difficulties, to build on their strengths, and to maintain caring and supportive relationships. We know these are difficult times for families. There's pressures on family life, and with things like the pandemic and the cost of living crisis, these have been exacerbated. We also know that we face wider challenges across our health and social care system, not least in terms at the moment, sadly, in terms of money. I hope that we will have answers to those issues in due course. But nonetheless, it's really important that we have a focus today on some of the things that we can do something about. And this addition to the suite of guidance available in relation to family support, I think is really important. So I want to thank everybody who've been part of the development of this Reflections episode. I think the leader authors, Helen and Mandi MacDonald, but I know a number of other people will also have given time and expertise to this, and it's really good to see it come to fruition. So I hope it's helpful to the wider cohort of social workers in their practice, and it helps us all collectively to do the best we can to support families. So I think I'll probably be handing back to you, Helen. I don't know, but thank you ever so much for the chance. I can stay for a few minutes to listen to the wider engagement, but I need to leave just before 1, I'm afraid.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Very much appreciate you taking the time to join us today. So I'm just going to hand over to Aine, if you'd like to share your slides.
Hi, everybody. Can everybody see the slides okay?
Yes, great. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thanks very much. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today. I was actually one of the advisory group for the paper, and I highly recommend the position because you can go along to meetings and other people go away and do all the hard work, like Helen and Mandi and Melanie. I'm going to talk about family support in statutory social services, but I actually wanted to take a minute first to mention the importance of taking time to reflect. Oops, sorry, bit of a technical problem. There we go, apologies. That was just a picture actually of Edward Bear coming downstairs, bump, bump, bump on the back of his head behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs, but sometimes he feels that there really is another way, if only he could stop bumping for a moment and think of it. I don't know about you, but a lot of days I feel like Edward Bear, having time to be able to give serious thought and consideration to ideas is very difficult in the fast-paced world of children's services. But giving yourself time to think and to share ideas about different ways of doing things is really important. As for Edward Bear, he made just one major change, and in 1926, he changed his name to Winnie the Pooh and was an immediate success. The Winnie the Pooh brand makes $6 billion a year, so small changes can have big impacts. In recent times, there's been some debate about the role of trust, children's services, and family support. And I say, if in any doubt, reference the legislation, which really are the legal rules that set out the duties and powers of trusts and make explicit when social workers can and should intervene. Part 4 of the Children's Order sets out clearly the duties of trust to provide family support. And Article 18 in particular places a general duty on trusts to safeguard and promote the welfare of children within their area who are in need. As you'll know, a child in need is a child who needs additional support to meet their potential. It is a broad definition, and that is to emphasize the importance of prevention, which is another underlying principle of the Children's Order. Article 18 states that the best place for the child to be brought up is within their own family, and that a child in need can be helped most effectively if the trust is working in partnership with parents and other agencies. And Mandi will have already alluded to that. Under the Children's Order, trusts currently have the principal responsibility for coordinating and providing services for children in need, with, of course, the support of other key agencies. Partnership with parents and others, prevention, participation, and protection are key principles underpinning the Children's Order. and they remain just as relevant today as they did when the Children Order was first enacted. On the Family Support website, which is a website run by SBPG, there are currently 182 services listed under family support. And my question is, how can we help frontline social workers to stay up to date with the wide range of services available to support families? What about referrals to social services? Who is knocking on the door? From the beginning of April 2022 until the end of March 2023, there were 35,606 referrals to social services, which was very slightly down by less than 1 to 2% on the previous year. In addition, as a snapshot, there were 22,875 children in need reported at the end of March this year. This includes all children under 18 who are currently on a social work caseload, from family support and intervention teams to leaving care. This figure has more or less stayed the same over the last number of years, and in fact is a slight decrease this year. But it's interesting to note that 42% of these children are aged between 5 and 11, and the next highest percentage at 26% were aged between 12 and 18. Given that age profile, does of course beg the question, would earlier help have made a difference if it had been available when the problems or issues first began to emerge for those families? On the other hand, over the last 7 years, since 2016, the number of looked after children has risen every year, year on year, and there are now 911 more children in care than there were in March 2016. The last total is 3,801, which is the highest number since the Children Order was enacted. This certainly supports what social workers are telling us, that children's needs coming to the door of social services are far more complex now than they were in the past, and maybe the opportunities to intervene earlier have not been available. It brings to mind the quote about being so busy pulling people out of the water that we have no time to go upstream to prevent them falling in. 37% of referrals to social services came from the police. 37% is a very high number, well over 1 in 3. The next highest, although substantially less, was from other social workers, and then followed by relatives and then teachers. The presence of relatives making referrals to social services, I think, is testament to families wanting their family to get the help they need, and indeed for children to be protected when that is needed as well. Why are they coming? Peter has already mentioned the current context, and that is really important. There is no doubt we're in the midst of a profound cost of living crisis that has huge implications for families and children. We know that poverty at any stage leads to negative outcomes. We know from the Child Welfare Inequalities Project that children in the 10% most deprived small neighbourhoods are 10 times more likely to end up on the Child Protection Register or as looked after children than children in the 10 most least deprived areas. So there's great pressure on family support and other services. And when universal services are under pressure, for example, health visiting, or indeed our own family support hubs, needs escalate because intervention cannot be given at the right time. Only 1 in 5 children, 1 in 5 children have lived with an adult that has perpetrated domestic violence, and 62% of children living with domestic violence have been directly harmed by a perpetrator. In addition, of course, to the harm that's caused by witnessing the abuse of others. Again, this is a situation where demand is outstripping supply for the services that can support women. It is a constant challenge to ensure that frontline services have good knowledge and understanding about things like domestic violence, or indeed the impact of mental health, in order to help us make the interventions that social workers are involved in as effective as possible. 1 in 4 adults experience a mental health problem in a year, and the evidence would suggest that the presence of parental mental illness does increase the risk of harm and neglect of children. This, of course, does not mean that all parents with mental health problems will neglect or abuse their children, but some may need additional support at different times. Senior practitioners who were consulted in relation to the production of this reflections piece talked about the impact of substance misuse, the issue of prescription medication being abused, mothers on heroin, resulting on many occasions in children maybe being abandoned, and is the reason that many children become looked after. We need to ask what type of family support approaches and safeguarding approaches would work best in these instances. Are we allowing staff to become sufficiently knowledgeable and skilled in making interventions with families who have these problems? We need effective, low-threshold services to intervene further upstream before problems become entrenched. And as Mandy said, services that are not stigmatized, but seen as part of what is normal family support. So the right help at the right time in the right place. Josh McAllister, who was the author of the Independent Review of Children's Social Care in England, talked about the need for a revolution in early help. The messages are the same here in Northern Ireland. Providing support when the issue first emerges is crucial. I think also it's important to be realistic about the level of intervention and the length of time it may need to secure sustained change while working in partnership with the family. There are many great examples of collaboration with the community and voluntary sector and the statutory sector in different projects and services. Mandy's already mentioned, and Helen, the bottom-up approaches like locality planning groups under the Children and Young People Strategic Partnership and the multi-agency outcomes groups in every trust. But we need to ensure that we're maximising the potential of these groups to wrap support around families. Services like Sure Start, providing family support on a universal basis in defined areas of deprivation, become parts of the community and allow families to access support in a non-stigmatized way. Family support hubs and multi-agency networks have been mentioned already, providing early intervention services and working with families who need early intervention. Their referrals have increased. Demand is an issue, and so is capacity. 10% of referrals to family support hubs come directly from trusts, and about 20% are self-referrals by parents themselves, which I think is testament to their success. There is so much good work to celebrate, but can we work even more effectively together? Despite the current challenges, there are still many positive innovations within trust children's services, as well as in the wider community and voluntary sector. A major theme of the innovations is that of empowering family networks. Mandy has already talked about this in relation to being an ecological approach. This has been achieved in trust through the application of the signs of safety approach, through family group conferences, through the Think Family approaches. They can be grouped together, as Mandy said, as ecological approaches and are based on the premise that the development and behaviour of individuals can only be fully understood and supported in the context of the environments in which they live. So this is seeing the child in the context of their environment, the child, the parent, the wider family, the community, and the culture. In addition, the promotion of trauma-based approaches is also crucial to understanding and providing interventions. Family group conferencing has been in Northern Ireland now for some years and offers a decision-making and planning process that focuses on the welfare of the child, working in partnership with the child, the extended family, the community, and the professional networks. Signs of Safety is now rolled out across all trusts and is a relationship-grounded, safety-organised approach to child protection practice, and asks 3 fundamental questions. What are we worried about? What is working well? And what needs to happen? And it couches all that in terms that families can understand and allows them to work in partnership to provide that better safety for children. It also includes the wider family network to understand what the concerns are, what the impact on children is, and then to surround the family. Of course, there are challenges in this. Some senior practitioners tell us that some families do not have extended family who are in a position to help them, and these families can feel isolated, and this is where formal services need to become involved. Building Better Futures is another model currently in use for assessing and enhancing parenting capacity with children and families in need of support and protection. and considers, as Mandy said earlier, that child protection and family support are not mutually exclusive interventions, but need to stand beside each other. The Think Family approach, which recognises how parental mental health issues can affect family life and children, and can have an adverse effect on children and young people, but again helps to build support around the child and around the family. Although all of these innovations are challenging to implement in current circumstances, there is still much to celebrate. Challenges. Recruitment and retention is a major challenge across family support and intervention services and trusts. At the end of April this year, there had been a slight decrease in vacancy rates in trust family support and intervention teams. But in some trusts, there were still 4 out of 10 social work posts were vacant. And for others, there was at least 1 in 4 posts still vacant in family support and intervention. That's a huge number of vacancies. In 2 trusts, vacancies in their children with disability teams were even higher, with nearly 1 in 2 posts being vacant. Gateway teams' vacancies had decreased, and there was good progress, but certainly making progress in relation to retention in family support and intervention teams, which provide family support and child protection, has remained very difficult, and progress is slow, despite the huge efforts by trusts to try and build more support around the social workers in these teams. Of course, staff turnover means that often the least experienced social work staff are working with the most challenging cases. Demand outstrips supply, leading to a vicious cycle of losing staff. However, there is much positive work and initiatives emerging on supporting staff to self-care, from providing increased administrative support to employment of contact and family support workers, to coaching, supervision, and promoting a learning rather than a blame culture. There is, of course, the recognition that having a manageable caseload will be a key to solution. Another key element will be family support being provided earlier to stop families reaching the threshold for social services intervention. That is about intervening, providing support upstream before people start falling into the river. Peter has mentioned financial constraints, so has Helen. There are lots of innovative ideas, but we need at least to secure medium to long-term monies to really test these out and embed them long enough to make a difference further upstream for families. But there are great grounds for optimism, and there are very many good things on their way with the potential to make a real difference. They say when you're at the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on. Helen's already mentioned the independent review of children's social care services by Professor Ray Jones, due to report on the 21st of June, which promises a fundamental examination of children's social care services, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Ray Jones has listened to many, and I very much look forward to hearing what his conclusions are. We have the Adoption and Children Bill, which has got royal assent and will be implemented over the next number of years as new regulations and guidance are developed. This will also bring us a lot more opportunities. The Children's Strategic Reform Board has been set up under the Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Department of Health, with 10 director-led work streams to tackle the most wicked of problems in the system, from unallocated cases to placement sufficiency for looked after children to workforce pressures. With the launch of Encompass, the health and social care programme that creates a single digital record for every citizen in Northern Ireland, this promises to be a much easier way to gather, use and analyse data to support both practice and planning, and relieve the bureaucracy for social workers and social care staff. But as always, the greatest strength we have are our committed social work staff. The importance of hearing the voices of service users is very well established. We also now need to hear the voices of frontline practitioners and their managers to help shape the future of family support and maximise the opportunities ahead. Apologies. So just a final word, particularly to all the frontline practitioners here and the frontline managers across the statutory and the community and voluntary sector. Change will not come if we wait for some other person, if we wait for some other time. We are the ones we have been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. And I'd urge you all to have your voice heard in relation to how things develop as we go forward. I'm delighted to move on to a video featuring Michaela, who Helen mentioned earlier, who's a service user in a trust. I think her bravery in sharing her story explains 100 times better than anything else the complexity of parents' lives and the transformative power of social work practice, especially through a trauma-informed lens. Thank you.
Thank you, Una. It's a very comprehensive presentation. We're just waiting now on the link, and we hope you'll appreciate the bravery of Michaela in sharing her story. Thank you.
I'm Michaela. I'm a mommy of 2 little girls. My life before being a service user, I was actually staff and worked in health and social care myself. And I got in a bad relationship and ended up on the other side of it. So I was in it for 6 years. He was very physically violent as well as all the rest. And I was terrified. I was terrified for my life. Every time I tried to leave, it got worse. I stayed for my girls because I wanted them to have a family. And I was scared of social services because I'd heard so many horror stories of when you leave and what happens. And I didn't want to lose my girls over it. And that was fine and that worked until he hurt my girls. And that was it. That was my turning point, and that's when I left. Although when I did leave, I was at risk even more. That's when I got attacked multiple times and nearly died leaving that relationship. I feel like having somebody that understood would have helped a lot. It's easy to say just leave. It's easy to think, oh, you're gone now, it's all fine. When actually leaving a relationship like that is almost like leaving a cult. You're brainwashed and groomed to behave and be a certain way. And when you leave, you're at high risk of violence from the ex-partner, but you're also lost because you don't know who you are. Your whole life revolved around survival and keeping them happy to reduce the punishment you were going to get. There's times you actually crave the ex-partner back. And it feels like a physical feeling where you're missing them so much, and it's called the elastic band effect. And especially when I found my social services were involved, he was able to use that as it's us against the world, it's us against them, rather than, you know, realising he was the one in the wrong. But again, that all comes down to that whole cult kind of mentality of you're conditioned and groomed, and having somebody to understand that would have been great, other than, right, you've left now, or, oh, why did you go back? The family centre was one of the biggest turning points for me. It was actually a social worker in the family centre, along with the family support services, that were trauma informed. They were the ones on the ground who helped me with everything. They even offered to help me move house when I moved out of the refuge. They were there for me. They understood. They seem to have more time and they take more focus. They see you as a holistic role as such. They see you as a whole person. They see that your children as a family unit, and they take everything into consideration. Yes, there was a few blips as the elastic band effect happens, but overall, every time I went back, my eyes were open and they couldn't be closed again. And I found myself stronger and stronger to stay away and to stand against them in court, to get a conviction and to keep my children safe. So fast forward 2 years now, I'm a completely different person. I'm me again. My girls are so much happier. We have no contact completely now, and they have spent this time healing, and so have I. So what I do now is I help others in the same situation, and I give them kind of support when those like elastic band effect hits, when the craving hits where you're missing them, when they're saying things, when things are happening. I'm the person that they can message and say, you know, he's doing this, what can I do? And I find reaching out to somebody, having somebody that's been through it and came out the other side, somebody who's lived experience, it's greater than any book or piece of paper that somebody can just give you. I joined the Parents Forum, which we work with social services now to create better practices. Meeting one good social worker who was trauma informed, had actually training in trauma work, saved my life and my children's lives. And having that one social worker help me, believe in me, not treat me as if I was a bad parent, but see me as a victim and try to help me, made such a difference. And I feel like if other women had the social worker that I had, there would be a lot more of us free and happy again.
Thank you. We're going to pass over to Melanie now.
Good afternoon. I'm Melanie Stone. Kind of feels like we need a moment to sort of take in what we've just heard before rushing on to the next thing. My role this afternoon is to share with you the words and the voices of other parents who have talked to us during 7 years of studying the National Lottery Community Funded Reaching Out Supporting Families programme. So to introduce me, I'm Melanie, as I said. I'm a social worker and I work for the Centre for Effective Services, which is a not-for-profit organisation. And our main aim is to get evidence of what works into social policy and practice and to support the implementation of effective services for families and communities. So I'm just going to share some slides with you. So we worked with the Reaching Out Supporting Families programme over the course of 7 years. There were 36 voluntary and community sector organisations who got grants. And they then worked in partnership with one or more voluntary community sector or statutory agency partner. Among the statutory partners were education, different hospital departments, psychology, maternity, sexual health, and fit and looked after child teams. And they had a maximum of £600,000 funding over the course of 5 years, and then a third of them were able to access an additional 2 years of funding. And there were 3 programme outcomes. More children and their families will have greater skills, knowledge and understanding to overcome adversity. More children and their families will come together to learn, and that coming together to learn was quite broadly defined. And then more children and their families would be part of the community that they live in. So in terms of what families told us had changed for them over the course of the programme, in terms of what they've said and how the programme was organised, excuse me, has a lot in common with what Mandy was talking about earlier, which I'm very heartened to see. So first of all, they reported increased confidence. So that was higher levels of self-esteem, with parents and children generally feeling better about themselves. Increased confidence in the parenting and caring role, and a better understanding of their child's needs and strategies to address those needs. And then increased social confidence. So that was in confidence to go out and seek support and to engage with education, other services, peer support. They also reported enhanced well-being. So that was improved relationships between children and their parents, as well as other family relationships, better communication, reported a greater sense of trust within families and within communities, increased ability to cope, so feeling less anxious, feeling more able to meet the challenges that they were facing, and then better health, and that was both physical and mental health. and then a reduced sense of isolation. So they built new relationships and strengthened existing extended family relationships. And there was the both organic and planned development of peer support networks. Reduced isolation in terms of shared experiences. So report received through sharing knowledge and experience in a safe place, and the sense of safety that was created within the programme was reflected on a lot by parents. And then an increased knowledge of other supports, and also what we were able to see was an increase in confidence in terms of seeking further help. So in terms of what helps families, over the course of the 7 years, we looked at all of the self-evaluation reports that were submitted to the National Lottery Community Fund. And then in addition to that, we interviewed some parents just in the development of a webinar and a conference to report on the findings. And so some of the things that the parents talked to us about was about the complexity of the landscape of services, the benefits in family support being proactive and coordinated, and of this early help, as well as a few more things that I'll go into. So in terms of early support, families told us, I think possibly had more support been put in place earlier, it would have been, I'm not going to say it would have been easier, but it would have taken a lot of the pressures away. And another family told us, life is just, you're looking down the barrel of a gun. And I think in terms of all services, you know, it should be given to you at the start. I think you shouldn't have to go looking as much as we had to. In terms of help to navigate a complex landscape of services, this is what families said. I think the resources there should be very well laid out, maybe online, or just a contact person working, maybe in a non-profit organisation, or working in the NHS, or working in the hospital. A social worker even could maybe come out at the start and just go through what's there, just to give you that blanket of support that you know you can avail of if you want to, you know, because the resources came to us, because I had researched. And another one, at the start of our journey with her, you don't know what to ask for. You don't know what's available. It's completely, at the start, you find you're just in a dark tunnel with no torch. You have no idea what resources are available or who is out there to help. In terms of the proactive nature of family support, you are going through so much every day with your complex child. Things can turn dark in an instant. We can end up in A&E, we could end up in ICU. You don't have time to be scrolling through leaflets. It was just very easy, gradual pathway that they made it. It was seamless. There was no issues. You asked and they gave you any information that you needed. They knew exactly what we would need. And I didn't know what I would need. Her dad didn't know what we would need, but they knew exactly. And in terms of support being coordinated, family said, I'm sure I'm not the only person in Northern Ireland this has happened to. There's a bit missing there somewhere along the line in communication, where the hospital should have been able to say to the project, look, we've got a family here and there's going to be long roads ahead. There's a big missing part there. Maybe that's the best way of putting it. I feel really strongly about this because I would hate to think that I would be so devastated for another mother to feel the way that I was feeling. And that quote comes from a brain injury project where a child had experienced a sudden brain injury. And then the family was in a very unexpected situation and trying to work out where that help might come from, and really looking for coordination between the organisation that could help them and the first person that they came into contact with, which was the hospital. over the course of the programme, one of the main things that came out was that what helps families is relationship-based practice. And I know that this will not be new to any of you, but comments from parents illustrated that relationships create the conditions for change to take place, that trusted relationships build confidence to change, and that building relationships creates a sense of being part of something bigger. Like, I am not the only person in this situation. I'm not the only person who's struggling with this, but I'm a part of something bigger. So one really good quote from a parent said, "I had support from a counsellor and he was just unbelievable. He was just so supportive, so kind, so empathetic. I felt so comfortable with him. He really drilled down into the problems I was having or the feelings I was having. And you know what? He just made me kind of face it in a way. Things I would usually say, oh well, all right, that'll do, no problem, okay, talk to you later, and would never do. But he always followed up on it. But you know, at the start I was thinking, this is torture. But then I looked forward to it because I could feel it. I could feel a change in myself. But you know what? I could feel a change in the atmosphere in the house as well. Building relationships creates a sense of being part of something bigger. Just a couple of really good quotes. So it says, it's good to get out and speak to other people, because then I think I'm not on my own. And that's a feeling of being part of something. And you're not the only person who's going through depression or has difficulties or is struggling with behavior. They gave me the confidence to start getting out there and making changes and doing things. These are big impacts on families' lives. And then just a few extra things at the end here, knowing it's okay to ask for help. And there was a lot that came up quite a lot, you know, being assured and being assured that it's okay to ask for help. It's a spectrum. It's not just about disabilities. It's about people who experience mental health issues, or there's just such a ream of things. And people, the last thing some people want to be is a burden. And you've people that will know exactly what to do with the system, and you've other people then that just don't know what to do. And it's those people that may look like they're doing great in life, but deep down, they could be suffering massively because they're afraid to ask for help, or they feel like, oh, I wouldn't be entitled to that. You know, and it's not about being entitled. It's about availing of services that could massively benefit your life. Then there was support that includes the whole family. That's come up already, came up very strongly as a theme throughout the programme, sometimes including the extended family. And then services that are person-led. And one parent said, they allowed me to set my own goals and my own targets rather than them setting them for me. So I was basically only doing what I had said myself that I wanted to do. They were just aiding me along the way, or holding my hand along the way and guiding me in the right direction. And then finally, a strong theme that emerges that's related to some of the quotes I've already said was peer support, being with people who have been in the same situation as you and being able to share and get support from them. There's a series of learning papers that has come out of this work, and if you receive the PowerPoints, those are on the slideshow, the link, just in case you find them useful. Thank you very much for listening.
Claire.
There. It's over to me. I'm just going to take a minute here to share my screen. Hi. So hi there, it's good to be here and really, really good to have been part of this process that culminated in the production of the paper, which we hope will be really useful for people. So I'm Claire Humphrey and I'm the Children's Services Manager with Barnardo's Northern Ireland. and I have been involved in managing the Family Connections service across parts of Belfast and Newton Abbey, and also have been involved in coordinating a collaboration in Rathcoole and Monkstown for really trying to respond to that whole ecological approach that Mandy mentioned earlier, where we're trying to, in that area, bring together churches, community organisations, schools, early years settings, all really pulling together to help children and young people in that area to thrive. And from that experience, a couple of things that we just wanted to pull out, and which have been very much reflected both in the paper and in the presentations that you've heard from today. It's just the real importance of that early intervention, early help. The value of getting in at that earliest stage, really helping parents at that point to understand what are the things that are going really well, that have gone well, the networks and supports that people have around them, and that might help as they've hit this bump in the road. For whatever reason, things have got a bit difficult and complicated, and getting in at that earliest stage and creating an environment, a context in a community where people know when things get tricky, you can reach out for help. And there'll be people around you that will be able to link you to the support that you need when you need it. We have also been really interested in the value of parents in supporting other parents. We have a group of parents we call parent champions. So local parents who have already maybe benefited from services themselves and are really committed to seeing those sorts of supports available in their community. So they're advocating for parents, talking to other parents about what are the things that are needed in this area, what are the things that seem of particular concern to people, and really helping to plan for and work with others to try to make sure that that sort of support's available in the community. And giving parents the opportunity to meet with other people who've been through similar situations, who know what it's like to live with particular sets of challenges, and really bringing those people together to support each other. And that's an incredible resource that we want to really maximise, just making good connections and links with people at school gates, in play parks after school, on the way to the shop, just people being connected in order to really support each other. And we've heard repeatedly today just the importance of that whole system around families to really build resilience, to really offer support to families, to make sure that services are available in the community, and that the community itself is a supportive and networked place. We've heard about the importance of early intervention, and this is all happening, and we're talking about this today in a context where many of these early intervention services are being impacted by cuts, and we really need to be all pulling together to really partner with each other to provide the sort of services at the right time and at the right stage, as Una mentioned earlier. We know that good family support really depends on being connected to the people at the right time. And we heard earlier about the importance of those services being accessible and being easy to engage with. And often the community and voluntary sector play a really special, unique role here in having those relationships and being places where people can access and a kind of first point of entry. And so really positive relationships between statutory organisations and the community and voluntary sector, a strong, vibrant community and voluntary sector, are really essential, that we're all pulling together, that we're all collaborating around ensuring that our children and young people really achieve good outcomes. So that's just a wee bit from me, but I'm really, really delighted that one of the parents that we work with in Family Connections has joined me today, and really delighted to introduce Rachel. And I hope you'll all appreciate that this is a brave thing for Rachel to do, and we're really, really grateful that she's been willing to talk to us. So really, I'm just going to ask Rachel a few wee questions, and Rachel, if you're okay to unmute yourself, you're
Yes.
really welcome, and we're delighted that you're here. So thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah,
Rachel.
that's okay, it's working. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. That's brilliant. So, Rachel, do you want to maybe just start by saying a wee bit about how you came to be linked into Family Connections, why you sort of reached out for a bit of help, and maybe say a wee bit about your thoughts on if you hadn't got that early help, how things might have just been a bit different for you?
Yeah, we moved from Scotland to Tullycarna in August 2020. So it was during the pandemic, and there was during periods of lockdown. At the time, my little boy was 1, and we were just a bit lost. We didn't have access to health visitor support, and we didn't know anyone with young children. We became very isolated and just didn't really know where to go or what to do for help and support. And then I was put in touch with Family Connections, and they have really become a real signposting organisation for us, and being able to access help and being just in informal conversations, being able to help us. We've started to build up a relationship with one of the workers through the summer scheme programme, and they've really helped us navigate a difficult time and find out the things that we need to know. And we've certainly become less daunted by obstacles, and we were less isolated as a result.
Super, Rachel. So you mentioned there that you accessed a summer programme with other families in the area, and that with your family you were involved in an Incredible Years parenting programme. So do you want to say a wee bit about just that support that you got from other parents in the area and how valuable that was for you?
It was really reassuring. Just realising you're not the only one going through these things was just a revelation for us. You know, one of the big things was potty training, and just getting tips and ideas from others was of great benefit. Just through these informal chats, watching the children play and having those wee conversations just was a huge benefit for us. And my mum was looking after my wee boy at the time, and she participated in the Incredible Years programme, and then she would feed back to me, and it was really valuable for us. Rory was going through the learning to share phase, and we were really struggling and getting frustrated. But just getting together and talking to other people really helped. My mum felt really encouraged and empowered by it. Getting the advice at the appropriate time before things were escalating was just of huge benefit. And I felt reassured knowing that we weren't alone in all of this. Everybody made us feel heard and feel welcomed by it all.
Thank you, Rachel. And finally then, we've been talking a wee bit today just about the importance of having access in a community to lots of services when you need it. And so do you want to say just a wee bit about the way that Family Connections helped you link into other services and kind of help reduce some of that isolation and help you access support that was needed?
Yeah, we got linked in through the Family Support Hub through Sure Start, and that was just a huge benefit, knowing that there was help out there after feeling so alone. We've been able to build up the connection with one of the workers who's been able to guide and advise us. She was really approachable and genuinely caring. Having moved from Scotland, we didn't know about preschool, so Leanne has been able to help us with that. And she's never made us feel belittled by it for asking for help. There's been no stigma attached for it. And I've just had my second baby, and I just feel so much more at ease and confident knowing that there's support out there, and being able to access the support early before things all get too much. It just has changed my outlook and changed my maternity leave. And it's hard being a parent. There's challenges along the way, and it's just getting the support. We all need support from time to time, regardless.
Brilliant, Rachel. Thank you so much. And it's really great to hear just the way in which that's been of benefit to you. And just thank you so much for contributing today. We really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Helen, you're on mute.
Sorry. I think we're with Aine now. Thank you so much, Rachel. I really appreciate your input today. For once in my life, I'm actually slightly ahead of schedule. Don't know how that happened. But if Aine is around and available, yeah, thank you, Aine.
Thank you, Helen. Well, yeah, I'm rarely on time either, so yeah, but it's a good thing, and I'll not keep people from their lunch or their afternoon for much longer. I'm delighted to launch another edition in the reflection series. You know, they're very much designed to support practice. You're all very busy practitioners with, you know, a lot of weight on your shoulders. And what this series is intended to do is to bring something to you all that's, you know, hopefully easy to read, that you're tempted to pick it up, that it's accessible, puts the evidence together in a straightforward way, and then crucially, you know, offers advice and guidance about how you can implement those ideas in practice. They're not your average DoH guidance, which is something I'm rather proud of, actually. But we do hope that they're supportive and of use in your day-to-day practice. Family support is absolutely, you know, a key area for social work in Northern Ireland, and indeed it spans across all programs of care. It's not just in children's services. We all need to be supporting families in whatever sort of shape and size those families come in. And I suppose what this edition does is that, you know, it gives us more information about what family support is, why it's important, and then very importantly how we can do it better. So I really welcome this sort of latest in the series, and I hope you all find it very useful. I'll just finish off with some thanks. A thanks to NISC, to Patricia for opening today's seminar, and to Alison Shaw and her team in putting together all the technicalities. It's very much appreciated. And major thanks to Helen Dunn and to Mandi MacDonald, the lead authors on this reflections, as well as the steering advisory group who have contributed a lot of time and expertise to the project, and we're very grateful for that. And then again, a huge thank you to all our speakers, to Helen and Mandi. I would like to give particular thanks to Rachel Kelso. It is very brave to come and speak to an audience like that, like you have done and spoken so openly. And it's very powerful. It really helps us all as social workers learn. So a major thank you for that. So the reflections is on the website. I think we maybe have a website address to display maybe at the end, or maybe not, but we can send it out if you don't. And there are hard copies available. So if any of you as practitioners want hard copies for your teams or your service, just contact the Department of Health OSS at health-ni.gov.uk, and we can sort something out for you to get those. So thanks again, and I hope you have a good afternoon.